all of you, I'm sure, remember when Jeremy Corbyn actually was elected, and that was a real sign of the level of political dissatisfaction with what was happening. And at that time, many of us actually believed, and it might seem laughable now, but we did actually believe that if we got a leader like Corbyn elected democratically in the Labour Party, that would give us an electoral hold within Parliament, that the Labour Party would acknowledge the democratic vote of the members. You know, some ways that seems perhaps to have been a bit of a naive thought. And he got in under an upswell of support. I remember, and some of you I know were here, when we were running the Jeremy Corbyn for Leader campaign, which kind of also fed from the campaign to stop UKIP getting in here. And it was a very interesting, and like all of those campaigns were around here, it was a very enjoyable campaign. And I think that's something we need to remember, that one thing that your party has to do if it's going to succeed, and this links again with what Ken was saying, we actually have to make it enjoyable. I mean, yeah, we had some bad times in that campaign, didn't we? You know, we had times when we were facing the rabid far right, and they were threatening us nose to nose here, literally. But actually, we had some hilarious times dressing up as French waitresses outside the UKIP offices in Ramsgate and thwarting them by humour and persistence. Anyway, we got Jeremy Corbyn in, and I'm sure many of us remember that upswell of just joy and excitement that there was, and a feeling of empowerment. I was lucky enough to be in the hall when his election was actually announced. And I remember my partner said to me, just remember this moment, because this is the best it will be. And he was totally, absolutely right. Because what we were faced with after that was the anti-Semitism witch hunt, the witch hunt of the left. The witch hunt of the left, which has not just started there, but it continued there. In fact, it gained force. And it's exactly what Starmer also utilised to get rid of us. What we did, what we knew, and what we were being gaslit about, we were being told we were crazy conspiracy theorists. Remember when we were telling people that there was organised lies and strategies being used against us, in particular by the Parliamentary Labour Party? Well, now, of course, it's all come out under that great beacon of democracy, Keir Starmer and Morgan McSweeney. We know that they organised a vehicle for actually taking power away from the members. And actually, in the same way that Starmer became leader of the Labour Party through fraudulent means, that's what it was. He committed a democratic fraud. He also became Prime Minister of this country through a democratic fraud of the electorate. And that's very clear, the amount of promises which he broke. Now, of course, it's all beginning to unravel now in so many ways, and many of us knew it would. But what we also have, if anything, is a much harsher climate. We have the rise of the right nationally. Because when Farage did manage to push through his obviously now failed strategy of so-called wresting control away from Europe, what we've landed with is a worsened economy, worsens rights at home and abroad, fewer protections and worse living standards. And I'm not opening that up for debate in particular, but whichever way you look at it, I don't think anybody can claim that the promises which were made by Farage actually have come through. But it doesn't matter with Farage, because he's as much of a charlatan as Trump is. So he's made a second promise to people. He's repackaged that promise under an anti-immigrant vocabulary, which is not about anti-immigrants. It's actually about anti-black people. It's actually anti-Muslims. It's against anti-minorities. And to be utterly truthful, it's anti the poor. Because who is bankrolling them? And not just by a few pence, but by millions and millions of pounds. Who is funding GP News? It's the billionaire class, the same class that has given us Trump, and the same class now that we're seeing trying to take possession of everything that as yet they still don't earn. And then internationally, we have the total breakdown of international law. We have the racist project of Zionism as it's acted out in reality in Israel. And we have the politics of Israel, the silencing of free speech, the oppression of minorities actually being used, not just in terms of legislation, but the technology of oppression is also being used against us. And so with the backing of Trump, we see the awfulness of the Israeli government making an official invite to the thug Tel Aviv Tommy Robinson, somebody who most politicians, all politicians, used to see for what he actually is. So this is not just working in a national, it's working in an international way. And we all know where that's leading us. Recently, 2 Asian women have been raped. I don't know how many of you have seen it. Violently raped, and it's being considered as racist rapes. Just think about that. 2 women of colour raped because of their colour. We have the Tory rising stars talking about sending people home who illegally have the right to be here. We have NHS workers having the highest rates of abuse. The nurses had a report today, and they were saying that they have never had so much racist abuse. My daughter works in hospitals, and she says exactly the same. And in Kent County Council, let's forget their little private meetings, you know. It's quite nice to see them arguing between themselves in that way. But in Kent County Council, we have people who actually reject the idea of climate change. So they actually reject science, they reject evidence, and they certainly reject any policies which try and fight for equality between people. Now, the disgust with the Labour Party is plain, and I'm very happy to see the Labour Party on its knees. I don't want the Labour Party just on its knees. I want it decimated. I want it dead. I want it never to exist again as a political force. I'm just trying to be subtle there so you understand where I'm coming from. But I don't just want the Labour Party dead. I want to see reform destroyed. I want to see the Tory party in all their awfulness destroyed as well. So what is it we actually need, and what should the function of your party actually be? Well, for me, I totally recognise and am very sad and frustrated by what I've seen in terms of the start of your party. But what I'm keeping in mind is those three aims I have. Three aims. The triumvirate, the Labour Party, the Tory party, and reform. The triumvirate of establishment power I want to see destroyed. And I want to see the lives of people improved. I want a real democracy running throughout this country, not just at a local, but on a national level as well. And I think it's come to the point where we see what's going on, not just in this country, but overseas, where I kind of feel, I first came to this country in 1959. It was a very hard place for a little black girl to be in 1959. I could not walk out of my way to school without being the victim of racist abuse. And that's what I'm seeing again. And I feel the fear that I know other minorities are feeling at the moment. I feel the fear that many poor people are feeling at the moment, that people who are in need of an NHS to get them through, people who are in need of a decent education service for their children, people who don't have proper houses to live in, who can't afford enough food to eat. A third of our children who go to school every day hungry. Unbelievable. In the sixth richest country in the world. It is extraordinary that we allow this to happen. And that is actually our task in front of us. And I would say, by whatever means, we need to get hold of power and make that power ours. Thank you.